Bonjour. Welcome to Wahsa Distance Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MEL3E, grade 11 workplace math, and I am the teacher, Bronwyn Slade. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and also on the television at Bell Express View channel 972. You are always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available both for me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled from Monday through Thursday, 9 until 10 in the morning. And we are in our 6th week. Nope, we are in our 7th week out of our 9-week course. At this point, you definitely should be submitting work. So a reminder that the support questions, the ones with the little pencil icon, are not for marking. They're practice problems, so you can decide which ones and how many to do. I encourage you to do them all, but if you are understanding a concept and you're tight for time, then it is totally okay to skip questions and just focus on things that you struggle with a little bit more. That is completely reasonable. Also, if you need more practice, please ask, and I'm happy to send you more practice. The key questions, the ones with little key icon, are the ones to submit for marking. So these ones, please do all of these questions. I'm marking them all, so please do them all. Show all of your work, your steps, and your thinking. This way I can figure out what it is that you know and what it is that you don't know, and I can help you with things with more information. So how do you actually submit your work for marking? Well, there are 3 methods. The first is to scan your work and send it electronically. If you have a device, you can scan your completed work using that device. Apple devices have the Notes app, and Android devices have a Google Drive app. These are free apps that come with these devices and are pretty straightforward to scan, basically point and click. However, if you do need some support, on my YouTube channel, there are tech tutorials that walk you through step-by-step how to use both these apps, and they're fairly easy to follow. You can also ask me questions, and I'm happy to help you. Then you can send it to me either through email to studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CCH to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca, or you can also connect with me through Facebook Messenger, where my name is B. Slate Wahsa. The second method is drop your work off in Sioux Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at 74 Front Street, or the bright red building next to the post office, and have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. So you can just put your work in there at any time and we'll get it back to you as soon as we can. The third method is to hand your work in to your DEC. Your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. Students can also send in their work by fax. Just give us a heads up that it's coming, because sometimes things get lost in the shuffle. So it's good for us to know that it is coming. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, both my Facebook and my YouTube channel are under the name B. Slate Wahsa. So you can friend me on Facebook, subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll get notifications when I upload one of our radio Zoom classes. They're all recorded, and I upload them shortly after broadcasting. Also, there are short videos in playlists that explain common errors and confusing concepts that, if you're struggling with something, might be a good place to start instead of just doing a general internet search. Math is a really visual subject, so I strongly encourage you to access the videos. Just listening to me speak is only going to give you a small part of the whole experience. So watching me live through Zoom, even if you don't want to talk to me, that is fine. Or watching the replays on YouTube and pausing or stopping as you need to go, it's a great option as well. If neither of those work for you, then let me know, and I'm happy to send you a copy of the recordings so that you still get the full experience and you can still really set yourself up for success. So if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and connect with me. You can send me an email at bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. You can connect with me through Facebook at B. Slate Wahsa. You can give me a call at the office at 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or toll free 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., though I teach from 9 until 11, so that is not a good time to try to get a hold of me. But you can leave a message and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Today we are starting our last unit, Unit 4, looking at Lesson 16, which is vehicle costs. So our learning goals are that at the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify and describe the costs of having a vehicle, and you'll understand the fuel consumption costs. You know you've met these learning goals because you know the various costs involved in owning a vehicle, and you can calculate fuel consumption and gas costs. When will you use this in real life? Well, we continue to be strengthening our comfort with numbers. So throughout this whole course, we are getting more and more confident in the way that we can manipulate numbers, we can use numbers for our benefit, because they do show up in our lives all over the place, whether or not we like them, they are there. So we want to get more comfortable so that they're a tool opposed to a barrier. But first, let's activate our brain with some mental math. I don't believe in Mad Math minutes. They cause stress and anxiety in students, and I would say do more harm than good, but that's my personal opinion. So instead, we look at developing strategies that we can use in various situations that set students up for success, and again, develop your own comfort and confidence with numbers. So today's question is 33 times 96, and we are using the strategy of doubling and halving. So with doubling and halving, we don't actually have to double and halve. We could triple and cut it into thirds. So that is just something to realize. We can decide as we go what, but it's just we're increasing one by one factor and decreasing the other by the same factor is the idea. So here we have 33 times 96. Well, I know that if I can't cut 33 in half because it's an odd number, so I don't get a friendly number that way. I could cut it into thirds and get 11. 33 divided by 3 is 11. And then I could multiply 96 by 3. Not sure if that's going to help me or not. So maybe if I try doubling 33. So to get to 66 and then cutting 96 in half. So dividing it by 2. So 90 in half is 45 and 6 in half is 48. Sorry, 6 and a half is 3. So 95 plus 3 is 48. Okay, so we can then do this again. See, so if I times 66 by 2, so 60 times 2 is 120. 6 times 2 is 12. So that's going to be 132. And divide 48 in half. That's going to be 24. So I can do it again. So 132 doubled is going to be 264. And 24 divided by 2 is 12. So I can keep going. 264 doubled. Well, 200 doubled is 400. 60 doubled is 120. So that's going to be 520. 4 doubled is 8. So 528. 12 cut in half is, sorry, not 6. Wrote that in the wrong spot. 12 cut in half is 6. So I can still cut 12 in half or 6 in half one more time. So I can double this. 528 doubled. 500 doubled is going to be 1,000. 28 doubled is going to be, well, 30 doubled would be 60. So 28 doubled is going to be 56. So 1,056. And now all I'm left with, because I can't cut 3 in half, that's not going to make my life easier. So I have 1,056 times 3 is what I'm left with. So I can think of, well, that's going to be 1,000 times 3 is 3,000. 50 times 3 is 150. 6 times 3 is 18. So I'm going to have 3,168. So my initial instinct was because 33 is divisible by 3, was to cut it by 3 and then increase 96 by 3. I totally could do that. But by doubling and halving, I still was able to, probably a little bit easier, instead of having 11 times 96 times 3, that probably wouldn't be friendly for me. So there can be more than one way, of course, to do these questions. Okay, so that hopefully has woken up our brain for today to start Monday morning. All right, mine's on. What prior learning do we need to know when we're talking about vehicle costs? So I just wanted to make sure that we understand the specs of vehicles. So here, you can find information in lots of places, but here looking at auto123.com is just going to give us a little bit about some vehicles. So we pick a vehicle. I'm just trying to find one that doesn't exist. Come on. The joys of internet links. That one day they work, the next day they don't. Okay, so here we just have Toyota Tundra pickup truck. There's different things that you can pick, but what I want to look at are the details down here that tell you about the vehicle. They tell you the fuel consumption. So it says 17.7 in the city and 13.6 in the on a highway. We're going to talk more about what that actually means. They tell you the engine, the size and engine size. They tell you the power, transmission, things like that. Sometimes they even tell you the fuel tank size, which can be useful for what we're looking at. But these are the sorts of things that you can go into and find more information about the vehicle that you're actually looking at purchasing, or about the vehicle that you already have, so that you can then make more decisions about it. So just going through this information can sometimes be helpful to look up based on what you might need to know. Really today, what we're looking at is what's here, right? The very first thing is fuel consumption, which is one of the most important things probably when you're making decisions about vehicle costs, because fuel is going to be a big part of what you spend more money on. Okay, so then let's look at these new concepts. So with car expenses, this is listed on page 3 of your Unit 4 booklet. So we all know that cars are expensive, but in addition to the cost of actually buying a vehicle, which we've talked about previously, there's also maintenance, insurance, and the average gas cost per year. And gas is constantly increasing right now, so something to be constantly thinking about. Some of our costs are monthly, some of them are yearly. So these are also things to be considering when you're planning for your budgeting. So in general, costs to be considering are your insurance, your registration, your car payments, gasoline, oil, wiper fluid, things that you need to keep topped up. Oil changes with oil filters, they need to be changed every year or more frequently than once a year. Your air filter, your tires, any replacement parts or repairs that happen for your vehicle. These are all things that you want to plan for because they're going to happen. So let's look at an example so you can really see how you have to plan for it. So the following are car expenses that Zia experienced for 1 year. What was her average monthly cost? So the idea is that if you track all of your costs, then you can sort of figure out how much you should be saving per month. So even if you don't have to pay all of these things every month, you have the money for when you do need to pay them, because some of them you need to pay every 6 months or something like that, and having the money prepared is a really good strategy. So Zia has tracked all of her expenses for the year in total. So that's $130.74 for oil changes, $3,468 in total for the gas for the year, $35 for wiper fluid, $22 for an air filter, $1,554 for insurance, and $4,472 for car payments for that year. So to figure out your yearly costs, we're just going to add those up. So I'm not going to rewrite them. They're already there. We're just going to add them up. So using our calculator, add them up. Make sure we don't miss any of our amounts. Remember, these ones Zia has already figured out are all how much you paid in total per year. So in total, for costs of her car, she paid $9,681.74. So does that answer the question? No, because we're looking for average monthly cost. So that means we're going to have to do yearly divided by 12 to figure out monthly. So $9,681.74 divided by 12 equals $806.81. So every month, if she budgets $806.81, she will have enough to cover her costs the entire year. Some months she might not spend $806.81. She might spend less, she might spend more. But if you budget for it, then you have the money for when you need the money, which is the best plan. So Zia's average monthly costs is $806.81. So that's one thing that we want to practice today. Then moving beyond that, we say, okay, suppose Zia drove 43,079 kilometers in that 1 year. How much did it cost her per kilometer? So to figure out, this is key to figure out what you're doing, your math, cost per kilometer. So we're doing dollars per kilometer. And we're doing yearly, right? Because we have 1 year. That's how many she drove for 3,079 kilometers in 1 year. So we don't know how much she did monthly, but in a year. So that means that we're going to use compare our yearly amount, which was $9,681.74. So we do that. So then using our calculator, we're going to divide those to figure out how much it costs. How much it costs for her to drive every kilometer. So it costs her 22 cents. So when you think about it, over $9,000 a year seems like a lot of money. But in terms of how much she drove, it only cost her 22 cents per kilometer. And that doesn't seem like that much. So just something to, an interesting thing to think about it in terms of if you're using your vehicle a lot, that might make a sense for you to have it, because if you're driving a lot, you're going to end up spending a lot on it. All right, so now you can do the support questions on page 4 to 6, questions 1 through 4. Now let's look at fuel efficiency. This part can be a little bit tricky. So this is on page 6 of your IELTS booklet. And so to understand this at a very basic level, fuel efficiency refers to the distance you can travel on an amount of fuel. So how much fuel can take you how far? So just in terms of generally what qualifies as fuel efficient, so what is a good number to think about? Anything that is listed as less than 6 liters per 100 kilometers or more than 16.5 kilometers per 1 liter is considered to be pretty good. You want to make sure that you don't mix these two up. You don't want to have 16 liters per 100 kilometers. That number is too high, right? So this is either you can have a higher number of kilometers per 1 liter or a lower number of liters per 100 kilometers. So generally, the lower the number of liters, the better the fuel economy, right? Less liters to take you a farther distance because you're paying per liter of gas. So in Canada, we measure with liters per 100 kilometers. In the US, they measure with miles per gallon. So if you're looking at information about vehicles that are coming from the States, they might tell you the fuel efficiency of miles per gallon. But we in Canada talk about liters per 100 kilometers because that's the units of measurement that we use. So let's compare some to think about what it is that we're actually talking about. So we have 2 cars, car A and car B, and they drive the same distance. So yearly driving average is 14,750 kilometers for both of them. But car A has a fuel economy of 4 liters per 100 kilometers, and car B has a fuel economy of 5 liters per 100 kilometers. So it's 1 liter difference. So for the same amount of distance traveled, car A requires 590 liters, but car B requires 737 liters of fuel. And then if we figure out how much that's going to cost, if it's going to depend on how much fuel costs, but if we're putting the same type of gas in both of these vehicles and say I did this cost at $1.25 per liter, which is low compared to what it has been recently, how gas costs have been recently. So car A only spends $737.50 on gas for that year, whereas car B spends $921 on gas and 25 cents on gas for that year. So it is an almost $200 difference overall, even though it's only 1 liter difference in terms of fuel economy. So that has a big difference. And that's also if you're if we look at gas quickly at a higher cost. So car A, we have 590 liters that we've used over the course of the year. And we say that gas, I don't even know what gas is right now, but say that it's $1.75 because it's been that. So that's $1,032.50. Whereas the other car B, which is 737 liters times $1.75 is $1,289.75. So as gas gets more expensive, you end up spending more and more money. So it's like over $250 that the difference is. So this 1 liter, that's the only thing that's different, is this 1 liter in fuel economy really makes a big change financially overall because of you end up spending a lot more on gas. So here I say, even with a 1 liter difference in fuel efficiency, the owner of car B will need another 147 liters of fuel. and will spend an extra $183.75 than the owner of car A. All of that is from 1 extra liter per 100 kilometers. So just something to really consider. When you are purchasing a vehicle or when you're finding information about a vehicle, there's often these energy guides from the government of Canada on the vehicle, so you can find out information about it. They tell you the fuel consumption here with this little gas indicator. They tell you it usually in liters per kilometer. So here when it says 9.0 combined liters per kilometer, it's because when you drive in a city where you're stopping and starting a lot, you use more fuel than when you drive on the highway where you're just going at a constant rate. So in the city for this vehicle, it's 10.7 liters per 100 kilometers. On the highway, it's 7.4 liters per 100 kilometers. So they combine those, they average that out to get you 9.0 liters per 100 kilometers to just give you one number. And then down here where it says 31 miles per gallon, that's that other measurement, unit of measurement that the US uses. So then they also tell you the annual fuel costs. So they give you a rough idea depending on how much you drive per year and then the fuel cost of a certain amount. So this might not be true for you, but they give you something to compare to other vehicles because that's going to be standardized and that's going to always be an annual distance of 20,000 kilometers and an average fuel price of $1.09 per liter. So you can compare this to other vehicles if you're comparing vehicles. They also tell you in terms of the range for similar vehicles. Here it says small SUVs. So this is off of a small SUV. That it's 7.4 to 14.4 liters per 100 kilometers is the sort of average fuel consumption that's going to be. So this tells you where 9.0, where it falls in that range. So that can be really useful in terms of if you're trying to find more information about fuel consumption and your costs, your fuel costs. Okay, so how do we actually calculate this? How do we use all that information and figure it out? So example 2, how many liters of gas are needed for a Ford F-150 to travel 637 kilometers when it gets 15.4 liters per 100 kilometer? So these questions can be tricky because you really need to know what the question is asking to figure out how many steps you need to do. So this question is asking us how many liters. We are just figuring out how much liters. We're not figuring out the cost. We're just figuring out how many liters we need. So to figure out how many liters, we do that by our distance, how far we're driving, times our fuel consumption. How much fuel we use, rate. You don't need to write this out. I'm just started writing it out so you can think about it. So our distance is 637 kilometers times 15.4 liters per 100 kilometers. So this, we have to divide by 100. So then if we do that on our calculator, and of course, you can do the division by 100 at any point. There's different orders, is fine. So that is 98.1 liters. So that how much actual fuel you are going to need. That answers the question. So we want to make sure that we actually answer the question. Because sometimes we need to figure out something different. So this one says, how many more liters does a Subaru Impreza use to travel 30 kilometers in the city at 8.3 liters per 100 kilometer compared to on the highway at 6.4 liters per 100 kilometer? So then sometimes we're comparing. Here we're still looking for just the liters, but we're comparing the city to the highway. So we're going to do the same thing. We're comparing the same distance, 30 kilometers times our fuel economy. So 8.3 divided by 100 for the city. So we can do that. And then, so that is 2.49 liters in the city to drive that 30 kilometers. In the highway, we're still driving 30 kilometers. That's what it's the same. We're changing the fuel efficiency because we're driving more at a constant rate. So now we're doing 30 times 6.4 divided by 100, which is 1.92 liters. So now have you answered the question? So it asks us how many more liters, right? So we need to actually compare these. So the difference between the two. So in the city, so we're going to do city take away highway. So 2.49 take away 1.92 is equal to, forgot a 4, 0.57. So now we've actually answered the question. So we want to make sure that we're actually answering the question because it could be asking us more than what we think. Don't just follow it rowly in terms of what you've done before. Make sure you're answering the question. Okay, so now you can answer the support questions on page 8, question number 5. So we've looked at fuel efficiency, how much fuel you use. Now we need to figure out the cost of that fuel because that's probably what we care about a little bit more. So this is on page 8 of your IEL booklet. And I just want to show you that the cost of gas has gone up significantly in the past couple of years. If you have an old booklet, so before I updated it in 2021, you're going to have really low gas prices, like sometimes it's like 97 cents per liter, which is just completely unrealistic. It hadn't been updated in a long time. So you can still use those numbers. If those are the numbers that you have, it's still fine to use them. And when you hand them in, I will figure out what, if you could note it that you have an older booklet, then I can make sure I'm correcting it against the correct numbers. But I updated it to make it a little bit more realistically last year so that it's more realistic. It's actually useful information because gas prices just keep going up because of how things are in the world. So, as you know, probably gas prices change daily, weekly, all the time. So these numbers I use the various numbers as sort of a different range to sort of get used to it. Use the numbers that are given to you, even if they're not exactly what gas costs today. That's fine. So example 4, how much would it cost to fill up a 56.4 liter gas tank when gas costs $2.10 per liter? So to figure out the cost, we need how much gas. So we're saying that we're doing 56.4 liters of gas, and then we times it by $2.10 per liter, and that figures out our total cost. So a lot of this is you're just multiplying, but you just want to make sure you know what it is that you're multiplying so you are interpreting your information correctly. So we get $118.44 is how much it would cost to fill up that gas tank. And this is what, when you're pumping in a gas pump, this is what the gas tank, the gas pump's doing when it's calculating your cost. So then things can get a little bit trickier. So this question, it says, calculate how much it would cost to drive 1,530 kilometers in a vehicle with a fuel economy of 7.4 liters per 100 kilometers when gas costs $1.96 per liter. So with this, we have a lot of numbers. We need to figure out what it is that we need to do with them. We're trying to figure out the cost. So that's the total thing. How much would it cost? That's what we're trying to get to. So to figure out the cost, we need to know the fuel consumed, how much fuel used, times the fuel cost, right? Okay, so we know the fuel cost is $1.96. We have that information. But do we know how much fuel was used? No. We know the distance. We know the distance, and we know the fuel economy. So we need to figure out the fuel used. So first, before we can figure out the cost, we need to figure out the fuel used or the fuel consumed. And that's equal to the distance times the fuel economy. Or yeah. So 1,530 kilometers times 7.4 liters per 100 kilometers. So that is equal to $1,132.2 liters. So now that's our fuel used. So we can take that and put it in over here. So then our second step, we can actually figure out the cost. So times 196 equals $2,219.11. So again, it's super important to know what your question is asking to make sure you're doing all of the steps and you're not just throwing numbers at each other. I know it can be really tempting to just be like, oh, I just multiply all these numbers together. No, we need to make sure we know what the numbers mean and interpret them in order to get to where we want to go. Now you can do the support questions on page 8 to 9, questions 6 through 7. So now we're just going to look at a couple other examples that show up similarly in your key questions. So example 6, Cat needs new winter tires. How much will the winter tires cost, including HST? So we see an ad that says winter's coming. Tires from only $49.95. Then of course they have this asterisk. Let's see certain conditions apply. Obviously this is an old ad. So this is going to be $49.95 per tire. So $49.95 times 4, because you probably need 4. And then times 1.13 to figure out the HST. Again, you can do these in multiple steps or you can do them in one step. Whatever works best for you. So that is in total going to be $225.77, including your HST. So how much are these tires per month if you keep them for 4 years? So if it costs us $225.77 is how much it costs. Then if we say per month, now these are winter tires. So I'm going to say that winter is 6 months out of the year. So 6 times 4 is 24. So we're going to divide our cost by how long we use them for, how many months we use them for, which is $9.41. We're going to say per winter month because you don't use them in the summer. How much are the tires per kilometer if they drive a total of 30,246 kilometers in 4 winters? So again, you take your total amount and you divide it by your total kilometers. I just randomly pick numbers. They're probably not necessarily realistic, but it's what I do. So divide that. And we get that it is less than 1 cent per kilometer. We can round it up to say 1 cent per kilometer is what you pay for using those winter tires. All right, one last example. The following are car expenses that Benny had in 1 year. What was his total yearly cost and his average monthly cost? So here the list. He hasn't figured out how much it cost him in total in year, like Zia did at the beginning. So it's $69.99 in oil changes, and he did 3 year. So that means we need to do $69.99 times 3, because we paid for it 3 times. Monthly gas was $426.15, but that's monthly. So to figure out for the year, we need to do $426.15 times 12. Wiper fluid was $26.50. That only happened once. Air filter, $30. That only happened once. So we don't have to multiply those by anything. Monthly car insurance was $135. So we need to multiply that by 12 to get the yearly cost. And biweekly car payments of $172.34. So if it's biweekly, that means it happens every 2 weeks, which means that it happens 26 times a year. So we need to multiply it by 26. So we need to figure out all of these parts. If we just add up these numbers, we're not figuring out what it was at. Those numbers we can't compare. They're not the same. They're not the same, so we can't compare them. So we actually spent $209.97 on oil changes in the year. And then for gas, you have to multiply by 12 because we only go monthly. So $5,113.80. Then the monthly insurance, which also times it by 12, is $1,620. And then the biweekly car payments, $172.34 times 26, because there's 26 biweekly payments in a year. And so then we're also going to add in the $26.50 and the $30 that both just happened once. So then we add all of those things up together. Then we will get the yearly cost. My computer is not liking me. So want to make sure we put decimals in the right spot. So we want to make sure that we are paying attention to what is monthly, what is yearly, what is a different amount, different frequency in the year, so that we are actually figuring out the entire cost. So the total cost is $11,481.11 is the yearly cost. So then monthly, we do $11,481.11 divided by 12. And we get $956.76 is how much you should budget monthly to make sure you can cover all of your expenses for the year. So that is how you would answer this question. So you need to make sure you're doing all of these parts. Organize your information. You can do it like mine. You can do it differently. You decide what works best for you. All right, let's consolidate what we've learned today. So this has been lesson 16, looking at vehicle costs. So the general user costs we need to make sure that we're paying attention to are gas, maintenance, repairs, insurance, all of these things, and that we have some that are both monthly and yearly. So we need to keep that in mind. We need to be paying attention to fuel efficiency, which we measure in liters per 100 kilometers. The lower the number of liters, the more efficient. We need to think about the cost of fuel, which are in dollars per liter. And we need to figure out the fuel consumption, so how much fuel we used, and then the fuel cost in order to figure out these steps. So we need those 2 steps most of the time based on the fuel efficiency. So hopefully you now know the various costs of owning a vehicle, and you can calculate the fuel consumption and gas costs. All right, so that is what we've learned today. If you have any questions, please reach out and connect with me. You can call me at 807-737-1488, extension 2209. Call me toll free at the office at 1-800-667-3703. Send me an email at bronwyn.slate@nnec.owen.ca. Connect with me through Facebook at bslate Wahsa. You can always watch this lesson as well as all of our previous lessons also on YouTube at bslate Wahsa. Remember, we have a playlist called MEL3E where all of our lessons are, so pretty easy to find. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a lovely day, and Miigwech.